I am 97 years old, and this morning I calculated the exact number of days I have been alive. No calculator, just a cup of coffee and a few quiet minutes. I can name every American president in order, forward and backward. I remember the license plate of the first car I ever owned. And I remember what Carol made for dinner the last Tuesday before she passed. Pot roast, carrots, rosemary, and a little too much salt. I remember all of it at 97. Not because my mind is a miracle, because I treated it like a tool I could not afford to lose. I had a friend named Howard. 30 years we worked side by side. Howard was the smartest man in any room he walked into. Not loud about it, just quietly, undeniably sharp. He did the Sunday Times crossword in under 20 minutes, every week, without fail. At 80, he started repeating himself in conversation. We all noticed but said nothing. By 82, he forgot appointments. By 84, he forgot faces. By the end, he forgot me. 30 years, and he forgot me. So when people say cognitive decline is just genetics, just luck, I think about Howard. And then I think about that cup of coffee this morning. And I know that is not the whole story. 6 things kept my mind where it is. 6 disciplines, not cures, not miracles, just quiet, daily work. This is the one that started everything, and the one Howard stopped doing first. Your brain is lazy, not as an insult, as a fact. It is an efficient machine. Give it easy work. It does easy work. Give it nothing, and it begins shutting departments down. Not all at once, just one hallway going dark, then another. Before I was 50, I made a decision. I would never stop learning something hard. I took up woodworking, not simple shelves, proper joinery, dovetails, mortise and tenon, angles that had to be exact or the whole thing fell apart. It demanded patience, precision, and a mind that stayed present. When my hands could no longer manage the tools, I moved to chess, played the computer every morning, lost more than I won, and kept sitting back down. I still memorize historical speeches at 97. Lincoln, Churchill, long, dense, unforgiving language held word for word in the mind. Not because anyone asked me to, because keeping something difficult alive inside your head is the whole point. But here is the part that stays with me. Howard stopped reaching for hard things the day he retired. The crosswords faded. The books sat unopened. Nothing new entered his mind that surprised it or demanded anything from it. Over 13 quiet years, his brain received the message, not needed here anymore. And it began, slowly and obediently, to agree. Mental discomfort is not a warning sign. It is a working sign. The frustration you feel when something is difficult, that is your brain building something worth keeping. Hard things are not punishment. Hard things are maintenance. And that is the part most people miss. Isolation does not feel dangerous. It feels like rest. It feels like finally having the house to yourself. The quiet you always said you wanted. But the brain does not experience quiet the way you do. The brain experiences quiet as cancellation. Every Friday night for 31 years, I sat at a neighbor's kitchen table and played dominoes. Same rotating group of men, same bad coffee, same arguments about the same things. After Carol died, I almost stopped going. The house felt too empty to leave and too heavy to stay in. But I went back the following Friday, not because I wanted to, because I understood. Even then, that a conversation requires something a television never will. Memory, attention, reaction, the ability to track another human mind in real time. That is not comfort. That is exercise. People are not just company. People are cognitive exercise. Even the ones who irritate you, especially those ones. Irritation requires processing, and processing keeps the lights on. But underneath all of that, there is something else going on. Most people think of exercise as vanity, a younger person's game. Something you do for the mirror and abandon after 50. What they do not understand is that movement is not about the body. Movement is about the brain. Every step you take pushes blood upward, and blood carries oxygen. And oxygen is what keeps the mind lit. I have walked every single morning since 1963. Not fast, not far. 30 minutes, rain or cold, city sidewalk or country road. It did not matter. It was a conversation between my body and my brain, a daily reminder that both of them were still here, still needed, still in the business of being alive. My sister stopped walking after her hip surgery in her early 70s. Told herself she would start again when she felt better. She never quite felt better. The stillness became permanent. Within 4 years, the sharpness I had known in her my whole life began to soften, then blur. The doctors had explanations. I had a simpler one. Her blood stopped moving, and eventually, so did her mind. Blood flow is brain flow. That is not poetry. That is plumbing. And you cannot think your way out of bad plumbing. And this is where it gets real. Nobody wants to talk about sleep. It feels passive, unglamorous. You cannot brag about sleep the way you brag about discipline or hard work. But I am going to tell you something that took me too long to understand. Sleep is not the absence of effort. Sleep is the most important work your brain does all day, and it only does it when you are completely, deeply, consistently unconscious. The hours before midnight are when the brain does its cleaning. It flushes the waste accumulated during the day. It files what you learned. It repairs what the hours broke down. Disrupt that process enough nights in a row, and the filing system starts to fail. The waste starts to build. Slowly, the way debt builds, invisibly, until suddenly it is not invisible at all. Here is what I learned from that. The men I knew who wore sleeplessness like a badge, who boasted about 5 hours a night, who answered emails at midnight and were back at it by 5, those men aged faster in the mind than anywhere else. Not immediately, but by their late 60s, the accumulation showed. The sharpness dulled, the recall slowed. They had spent decades borrowing against their brain, and the interest had come due. Sleep is not a luxury. Sleep is the invoice your brain sends every night, and if you keep refusing to pay it, eventually it stops extending credit. That is the surface of it. Here is what is underneath, the fuel. And most people in this country have been running on bad fuel for so long, they have forgotten what clean feels like. I grew up with real foods, real vegetables, real meat, eggs from a neighbor who kept chickens 2 streets over, nothing from a box with a cartoon on the front, nothing with an ingredients list longer than the recipe itself. We did not eat that way because we were disciplined. We ate that way because it was simply what food was. Somewhere along the way, the country decided that convenience was the same thing as nourishment. It is not. It never was. You cannot run a precise machine on dirty fuel and expect precision. The brain is the most demanding organ in the body. It consumes more energy than anything else you carry. Feed it poorly, and it will perform poorly. Not dramatically, not all at once, just a little slower each year. A little less sharp each decade, until one day the fog is just the weather. Your brain does not run on willpower. It runs on what you ate for breakfast. And here is where the story changes. Everything I have told you, the hard thinking, the people, the walking, the sleep, the food, all of it rests on something underneath that I have saved for last. Because without this one, the other 5 slowly stop happening. Not overnight, just gradually, the way a fire goes out when nobody tends it. Purpose is what tends the fire. When Carol died, I nearly stopped. Not dramatically, I did not fall apart in any visible way. I got up, I dressed, I moved through the days. But something had gone quiet inside. The walks got shorter. The chessboard sat untouched for weeks. I was present in body and absent in every way that mattered. My son Daniel noticed. My daughter Eleanor noticed. I noticed too, but I did not know what to do about it. Then my granddaughter asked me to teach her youngest, a girl of 7 named May, to play chess. I almost said no. I said yes, and that yes pulled something back on inside me that I had not realized had gone dark. And here is what I learned from that. Purpose does not have to be grand. It does not have to be a legacy or a mission statement. It just has to be a reason to get out of the chair. For me, it was May, and the dominoes on Friday nights, and the speeches I still memorize because I promised myself I would. Small anchors, but anchors hold. And the men and women I watched decline fastest were not always the unhealthiest or the least active. They were the ones who ran out of reasons, who woke up one morning with nowhere particular to be and nothing particular to contribute. The brain, like the body, atrophies without demand, and nothing demands more of a human being than feeling needed. So let me bring it back to where we started. This morning I calculated the exact number of days I have been alive. I remembered what Carol put on the table the last Tuesday before she passed. It was not luck. It was not genetics. It was work. Daily. Unglamorous, unwitnessed work. Challenge the brain. Stay connected to people. Move the body. Protect sleep. Eat real food. Find something that makes tomorrow matter. 6 things. Not one of them requires money or talent or a lucky bloodline. They only require the decision to begin and the discipline to continue. The truth rarely arrives dressed impressively. It arrives in a morning walk, in a hard game, in a Friday night argument over dominoes that kept your mind moving without you even knowing it. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. But later is a door that closes quietly without announcement, while you are waiting for a better time. Do it for the future. Clear head, sharp tongue, right to the very end.